Which king made the most impressive plays with what they had at their disposal? Like the blunders video, we'll make it clear up front, a masterstroke needs to be a conscious move made by the king for it to count. Things that happen due to a matter of luck and twists of fate aren't on the table. Don't forget to praise the algorithm, then like, hype and subscribe if you like our content. Your support really does mean a lot at the minute. On another related note, our latest video addressing the Battle of the Blackwater was winded right out of the gate by a false copyright claim. We beat the claim because man-ish shadow babies defeat all other shadow babies, but by that point its impressions were tanked by the algorithm. We clearly didn't praise it hard enough, Tom.
Praise the algorithm.
If you could check it out after this video, we'd really appreciate it.
We worked really hard on it.
And with all that done and dusted, let's kick things off with our number 5 least impressive masterstroke, and that's... Nope, I'm not doing this, Tom. You have no idea the deal I had to cut just to escape the bonfire for the last video you forced me into taking part in. Incidentally, I hear tell as the ruler of the Fandome Isles, that means you have king's blood. You do? Oh, well then, let's gain your trust. I mean address the masterstroke of the Manus, which is taking out Renly and Penrose with shadow magic. With the exception of Robb, Stannis, on top of the gains achieved, kind of saved every other king's arse with this play along with his own. Renly doesn't really get a look in because he's the first to go down, but in reality, he was incredibly dangerous. Potentially the most dangerous king of them all. Penrose was also a massive threat because the dude's balls were big enough to knock down the wall in a single swing. At the start of the war, Stannis was the king with the fewest resources at his disposal. His only real saving grace on paper was being in possession of the royal fleet. He had very little to work with in regards to military might, and had less political power than Davos has fingers on his right hand. Taking out Renly and Penrose netted him that military might he needed to pursue his claim. By taking hold of his ancestral seat at Storm's End, which is a significant badge of legitimacy, it helped him maintain a certain degree of authority over his vassals. It's also a symbol of political power to wider Westeros too. Stannis also gains a sizable force of 20,000 mounted knights and men-at-arms, allowing him to be a serious military threat to all but one faction. And as previously iterated, he took the most dangerous threat in Renly off the board, whilst also putting himself far ahead of schedule, facilitating his capacity to beeline to his next objective before other factions had fully pulled their pants up and strapped on their plate armor. So, why the bottom of the pile? Well, for a start, this play is more of a catch-up to the others than a serious progression on the game board. Less owning the stage in the club, and more just getting past the bouncer. Then there's the cost. Stannis pays a hefty price, both physically and spiritually, for this. Making the Shadow Baby in the first place requires Stannis to give up something akin to his life force. Enough that trying to make a third one would have killed him. No two ways about it, the Manus has done his body some seemingly permanent damage in this process, which is why we don't see more of these shadowy entities even after he's had a good rest. Then there's the spiritual cost. I doubt Stannis lost any sleep over killing Penrose. He was far too brave to be mortal and clearly a demon in human form and thus needed to be slain, but he sure did over killing Renly. The death of his little brother has a profound effect, and haunts Stannis in his nightmares. Enough that it's inferred only Mel can put him to sleep. Oh, I bet she can. No matter how Stannis justifies it, on some level he recognizes the evil of this action, and it's likely to follow him and influence him to the end of his days. All in all, none of these plays are bad moves, but for the one true king, he kind of made a deal with the devil for his, becoming a kinslayer and arguably even trading his soul in some capacity for what basically amounts to a castle, an army that, despite its elite reputation, is fickle as fuck, and a fast pass to King's Landing, which you can check our Battle of the Blackwater video for what we fought on that. Sorry, Manus, I'm not sure if the prize was worth the cost on this one. Oi, Mel, careful with that fire! Anyone would think you were throwing it at me on purpose! At number 4, we've got Joffrey Baratheon and his puppet master, the Old Lion. Seriously, Tom? You know who's got to be on this list, right?
Yes, Baelon's Masterstroke has no drawbacks.
But... fuck the Ironborn? No? Okay, Old Lion at 4 it is then. There's 3 plays you could argue were Tywin's finest moment in this war. And yes, we're using Tywin instead of Joffrey again, because let's face it, he's in charge of the faction. There's the Red Wedding, appointing Tyrion as Hand, and the alliance with the Tyrells. The Red Wedding is a contender, but it's very hard to ignore the irremovable stain it's causing to the Lannister name. So the Old Lion's best play is... it's assigning Tyrion as Hand. Because on top of Tyrion cleaning out a bunch of dead wood and just being a great hand in general, that's what leads the Lions to the alliance with House Tyrell. The Halfman decides that for half a throne, the Lions can be taken from the side, getting the shit kicked out of them from all directions, and propelled back to pole position with a lead so wide, it was near impossible for any other king to challenge it. There is, of course, the inherent risk of the Tyrells plotting and scheming to undermine the Lannisters, which they begin to do the moment their feet touch the cobbles of King's Landing, but I do want to be fair to Tywin. He caught wind quick enough and was countering those plots quicker than Oberyn finds a brothel. Needless to say, the plots are simply the cost of doing business with arguably the most powerful faction in Westeros, and Tywin had it under control. So I'm not holding that against this move. So then, why is it down so low? The drawbacks. The Rose/Lion alliance was sparked and organized with aid from Littlefinger. Doing anything that advances that guy up the ladder automatically docks points off the play, because you can be damn sure it's not in anyone's best interests but Baelish's. It also facilitates events that dangle a big red self-destruct button in front of Tywin's face, that for some fucking reason, he just has to fucking press. And while it can still be considered an active action on Tywin's part to accept the terms, a lot of things were out of his control when it came to lining this up. Essentially, this was a when life hands you lemons moment and a second wind. But fair's fair, you can't argue with the results. The play had the potential to be game, set, and match. Until Tywin fucked himself over in other ways.
Leave your son alone, you old child-abusing bastard. He's a good kid. Be nice to him.
At number 3, it's I can't fucking believe he gets to make it this high, Balon the Bellend and the one good decision he made during his invasion of the North. There are few things you can say Balon did right in this war. Rejecting Robb's alliance offer? Big mistake. Attacking the North? Even bigger mistake. Thinking Tywin would grant him independence once the Old Lion held all the cards? Why are you so stupid? In all this misguided, some might even say utterly delusional cobbling together of thoughts you could pass off for a strategy were you informed that it was formulated by a 5-year-old, lies one stroke of true brilliance. And that is Balon sending his most capable and straightforward military commander to secure Moat Cailin while Robb and his army are south of it. To put it in its most simple terms, which you should always do when talking about Balon to keep it thematic, this was taking the North's greatest defense and turning it against them. Had Robb headed home after losing his momentum, assuming he didn't get stuck at the Twins, he would have ended up pinned here anyway, ready for Tywin and the Roses to catch him between the hammer and the anvil. Holding Moat Cailin also gave Balon some negotiating power with the South, since it's basically the only way to get a large army into the North without having to amass a colossal fleet that will no doubt suffer significant casualties to the Ironborn if you tried to attack from the west, or take fucking forever to get there if you tried to attack from the east. It presents a headache so massive for an invasion force that it would have genuinely been a worthwhile consideration for Tywin to just give Balon those piece of shit islands that he calls a home their independence. Like, seriously, Moat Cailin is the last stronghold you want to try and force your way through, even without the
Ooh, spooky swamp wizard.
So yeah, fair's fair. A sound, some would even say brilliant move on Balon's part. And unlike the previous two kings, it didn't have any real drawbacks. But still,
Fuck the Ironborn!
what is dead never dies, but neither does my hatred of these guys. Hey. That rhymed, Tom. And the one just missing out on that top spot at number 2 is Renly Baratheon, who unlike two other factions, nutted up, accepted the cost, and made the smart play immediately. Renly's masterstroke epitomizes the concept of keep it simple, stupid. As soon as shit hit the fan, he beelined straight for the Reach and secured their allegiance with a marriage pact and crowned himself king before Ned's head even left his shoulders. The Reach is hands down the most powerful region overall to have in your pocket, especially if it's in a mostly unified state like it is under Mace the Ace. It's genuinely crazy how much influence this kingdom can exert militarily and economically. Sure, they don't have the best warriors or army pound for pound, but who gives a fuck about the pound for pound when the army as a whole outweighs the next biggest regional army by roughly double. They're also the breadbasket for large swaths of the southern kingdoms and serve as one of the two primary economic hubs when it comes to trade and agricultural prosperity in Westeros as a whole, the other of course being the Riverlands. This gives them the ability to put a devastating squeeze on some very influential areas of Westeros by simply cutting off trade. By securing these guys as a first choice option rather than a sloppy seconds fallback, Renly had all but guaranteed his W. Tom in my notes here has likened it to Renly having the keys to the Death Star. Death Star? Don't worry guys, I'll keep it short and sweet. If you like Star Wars, check out Stardome, our Star Wars channel. The latest video is linked in the description. Anyway, as Tom said, it's like Renly had the keys to the Death Star. And the only reason he's not first is because we didn't really get to see how he'd use it beyond that initial opening play of depriving King's Landing. To be honest though, Renly as a whole does get slept on quite a bit. But really, when you look at it, he was kind of the biggest threat to everyone, with maybe the exception of Robb, whom he seemed open to being friends with. And we all kind of gloss over that it takes legitimate, irrefutable, dark magic to take him off the board. He's often compared in many ways to a young Robert. It's especially apparent when it comes to his charisma and popularity. It should be noted that Mace actually quite liked Renly as a person, which boded well for the integrity of their alliance, unlike the best of a bad situationship the Flowers got into with the Lions. The more me and Tom look at this, the more we're beginning to realize Renly was dangerous. And when we look at this play, which, let's face it, is basically making the game-winning move on turn 1, it shows us he was very proactive and had the intelligence and political chops to have a real bosh at winning. If only the throne had actually been his by right. Hey, Manis. And we've arrived at number 1. Renly decided to deal with Bully by finding his big brother to help him intimidate that bully into submission. A cracking move, it can't be denied. What could possibly be more impressive? When little guy says, fuck that, cracks his knuckles, and opens with an uppercut so fucking powerful it breaks the bully's fucking nose. Which is exactly what our number 1 did. Of course, it's the forever young wolf, Robb Stark, and his greatest masterstroke, the Whispering Woods, and it isn't even close. Robb will be immortalized in Westerosi history for 2 things: being betrayed at the Red Wedding, and this battle. Whispering Woods and how it snowballs sends shockwaves through the 7 kingdoms and announces Robb as a commander to be feared. Heavily outnumbered by a margin of 3/4 of his own host and facing 2 well-reputed military commanders, Robb, with no prior battle or command experience, in the space of just 6 days, destroys an army, liberates the capital keep of the Riverlands, rescues the heir of Riverrun, and just to be extra badass, captures what is easily the most valuable hostage you could possibly take where his adversary was concerned. Then look at it from the Lannister perspective. This green boy has defeated and deprived them of one of their most skilled battle commanders, removed the boot they had on the neck of the region, deprived them of their own valuable bargaining chip, destroyed, captured, or scattered 1/3 of their total forces, and as salt in the wound, has struck the old lion in the one area you could remotely consider a soft spot, whilst handing him his biggest L, well, ever on the battlefield, making him look weak, which is not what you want when your power is in fear. It comes at the cost of 5,000 men at the Green Fork and a couple of Karstocks at the Woods. But we've got to be honest. While it's never okay to devalue life, in war, sacrificing men is an unavoidable consequence of the territory. And all things considered, those 5,000 lives were a small price to pay, considering their sacrifice allowed Robb to quite literally reverse the tides of war. Or it would have been had you kept it in your pants and not trusted this smarmy twat young wolf. By the old gods, you frustrate me. Sure, it's not quite as impressive in the big picture as Renly gaining the allegiance of the Death Star region. But when you look at the pickle he was in, what Robb had to work with, and what he did with it, I mean, you all know my allegiance is with the Menace. But yeah, I totally get why them Northerners were putting that crown on Robb's head. Sorry, Menace, but he's kind of earned this one.
All hail the King in the North!
And that's our take. Which king do you think made the most impressive play in the War of the Five Kings? And what would be your ranking? Let us know in the comments. What did we get right? What did we miss? And what did we get wrong?